Look at this picture. 10 minutes before it was taken, someone in this photo had stolen all the money from the cafe on the beach. However, all these people claim that none of them visited the cafe in the last 10 minutes. Who is the thief? The thief is the man with ice cream. If he had bought it more than 10 minutes ago, it would have already melted, or the man would have already eaten it. Mark and James played in the attic where it was dark and dirty. But when they came down, only Mark's face was covered with dust. James's face was miraculously clean. However, it was James who went and washed his face. Why? James looked at Mark's face and thought that he was dirty too. At the same time, when Mark looked at James, whose face was spotless, he decided he was just as clean. To crack this riddle, you need to be very attentive. Okay, consider yourself warned. An elderly lady called the police. A detective picked up the call. The woman reported that her neighbor, a young woman called Gina, seemed to have disappeared. The woman hadn't seen her for a few days and got worried. When the police arrived at Gina's house, they managed to unlock the door and found Gina inside, tied to a chair, with her mouth covered with a scarf. When she could talk again, she told the police that 3 days ago, a robber had broken into her house, tied her, and taken all her money and gadgets. The police officers didn't believe Gina. Why? Look at the date on the calendar. Over there on the wall. See? It's the same date as the one on the calendar at the police station. But if Gina was tied all this time, who was changing the dates on her calendar? You got lost in a forest. It's getting dark, and very soon, wild animals will start their hunt. There are 4 roads you can choose from: the north, south, west, and east. But the north path will take you to a supermassive black hole that will swallow you up. The south road goes through a lake full of huge whale sharks. If you take the west road, you'll end up at the edge of a ginormous hole in the ground that can't be crossed. And the east path will bring you to a sky-high mountain that is impossible to climb over. Which road should you take? You need to follow the south road. Whale sharks present no threat to people. They will let you swim across the lake without any problems. Lauren cooked 10 buckets of chicken wings for a family gathering, 1 for each guest. But later, it turned out a little Jimmy was left without his portion. Someone took 2 buckets. Was it Uncle Patrick? He seems suspicious. Or maybe Lauren's son, Justin. He's wearing this creepy know-it-all smile. Or could little Jimmy himself hide his chicken wings in his bag with toys to get another portion? Look at the dog. It wouldn't leave Uncle Patrick's side. It can smell the meat the man has hidden. One night, you find yourself stuck in an old spooky castle. You hear someone chasing after you, and you run faster and faster. But suddenly, a dead end. However, a bit later, you notice 3 doors on the wall. But behind each door, there are some horrifying creatures. The first door hides zombies. Werewolves are behind the second door, and if you open the third door, you'll come face to face with bloodthirsty vampires. Which door should you open to have a chance to survive? Escape through the second door. The moon is waxing at the moment, and werewolves transform only on a full moon. Look at these students. Who's cheating? It's the guy in the front row. He's balancing an open book on his foot. It's the year 2158. Jim is repairing the roof of his garage. At one point, he slips, falls to the ground, and breaks his leg. But the next day, Jim is already walking in the park, looking perfectly fine. How is it possible? Jim is a robot. See that red light blinking over his left ear? They must have repaired him really fast. Another robot committed a crime. Unfortunately, the police were unable to catch the culprit immediately. But they suspended 3 people, and each of them could be the criminal. A police officer had to figure out the true identities of these people. He had a knife, a screwdriver, a bottle of water, and a pen. Which object should he use to reach his goal? He can make the suspects drink from the bottle. The robot will either refuse or short circuit. Now look at these guys. Who do you think is a real superhero? It's not Joker. His hands aren't as white as the rest of his body. And it's not Batman. His mask has no ears. But Superman is real. Mrs. Lawrence went missing on Friday. Her husband informed the police, and they started an investigation. The last person to see the woman was a shop assistant in a jewelry store. She confirmed that the woman, who had been wearing a red dress and red shoes, had bought a necklace that day. On Saturday, Mrs. Lawrence called the police herself. She whispered,
"I'm locked in some house. I managed to find a cell phone, but I may be discovered at any...
The police officer managed to track the call, but he could only figure out the street. Look at the houses on this street and try to understand where Mrs. Lawrence is kept. She must be kept in this house. Look, there's a tiny piece of red fabric on the fence over there. And we know that Mrs. Lawrence was wearing a red dress. You see a boat filled with people, but at the same time, there isn't a single person on board. How is it possible? All the people on the boat are married. 4 witches met up for their annual coven. The head witch looked at the rest of the group and exclaimed,
According to the laws of our community, we can't live among people or communicate with them. And still, one of you has broken this rule.
Look at the witches and find out who it is. It's the witch in a purple hat. There's a smartphone in her pocket. 3 friends, Kathy, Mark, and Lauren, gathered together to catch up on their latest news at Lauren's place. At one point, they decided to play hide and seek. When it was Lauren's turn to look for her friends, she easily found Mark. But even with his help, she couldn't spot Kathy. Can you help Lauren find her friend? Look, she's hiding in a trash can. Ew! To crack this one, you might need to think outside the box again. A man is pushing a car along the road. Then, he arrives at a hotel. He shouts, "I'm bankrupt!" Why? The man is playing Monopoly. And now, let's have some fun. I've got very unusual riddles for you with non-standard answers. An electric train is moving at a speed of 100 miles per hour in the northern direction, and the wind is blowing at a speed of 8 miles per hour in the western direction. Which way will the smoke go? Oh, come on. Electric trains don't produce smoke. Great. The next one for you. How many times can you subtract 10 from 50? Just once. After that, you'll be subtracting 10 from 40. How can you make number 1 disappear? You just add the letter G at the beginning, and it's gone. What can you easily hold without touching it? A conversation, if you're sociable enough, that is. My life is hard. Every night I'm told what to do, and every morning I do exactly what I was told to do. And still, I get scolded every time. What am I? I'm an alarm clock.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.